Jimmy Olsen, number 11, Matt Fraction writing with Steve Lieber on the art. Take it away.
Uh, so this is probably the quickest I've ever read Jimmy Olsen. There's not a lot of cutting into the different stories because Fraction is starting to tie up a lot of these loose ends.
Some
at play
funny
here.
talk about how he's going to tie it up towards the end.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Of course. But Jimmy ends up, where he had went from the last issue.
He sold the ship and flew off and left them all on the rooftop.
And so they're fending for themselves. So we see them at a certain point. They're running out of food. The warlord alien is calling for his wife. And Jix is trying to come up with, how we're going to solve this. And the professor says that, they need to know where Jimmy went because he cowardly cut off. But he knows he's in Metropolis because he has an Olsen detector.
Yes, and it will tell him exactly where Jimmy is.
Because it's keyed into his genetics.
Yeah.
And that Jimmy's in Metropolis. But we see Jimmy go to this alien race who only believes in fairness.
The scrub, they're called.
The scrub, and that because it's up to Jix on who she wants to marry, and that Jimmy and her were already married, and that it's very unfair that this warlord's come to Earth to take her. They don't like hearing that. And so when Jimmy shows back up, it's with this alien race.
I love that this alien, when they're when they're going through what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So Jimmy's saying, fair's fair, and I was married to her first, and he's like, indeed, Jimmicle Olsen of Earth. He calls him a few different names as he goes on.
Yeah,
continuing that gag, which is great.
Right.
He's like, fair's fair. No takebacks is indeed fair. But did you call no backsies or any fingers crossed, or was it opposite day? I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, they have a set of rules, the scrub, and we get that later with the no backsies because he yells no backsies are called when he attacks the warlord. So you like all that, and then we get with the Porcadillo and Corrigan, not that Corrigan, but a different one.
I love that gag.
Yeah, there's these two Metropolis detectives that Corrigan's like, you need to talk to him. He has information on who's trying to kill Jimmy Olsen. And both of these nameless detectives are like, well, how can we believe this guy? And he's really trying to sell Julian Olsen up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we can't be having this. So you feel like there's something up with these detectives, and you see one of the detectives make a call.
They're like, well, we don't really want to cross Julian Olsen, and we don't really want to cross Lex Luthor. So no. And it ends with one of them going to phone the boss, but it's like, well, which one is the boss, right? Julian or Lex is the way it leaves this.
Mm-hmm. And Superman shows up to have a talk with the crooked detective.
The ending of this story, because we cut all the way back round to it later.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the most issues of Jimmy Olsen, every time we cut to a new thing, has had the full classic like Silver Age introduction panel.
Right.
Wall of text, and most of these don't actually have it in this issue until near the end.
Right.
And this one does. It's quite funny. It's like, oh, you saw this sweaty nameless detective earlier, but he was merely a sweaty nameless detective in someone else's chapter. But now he's got his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And and we see it's Lex that he was phoning.
Right. He's phoning Lex, and Lex has Julian Olsen basically dead to rights, going, I know exactly what you did. And you see, is it Julian or Lex that's holding the lion? Of Metropolis.
I think Lex gives it to Julian to hold.
And he holds it. And as we learned in the last issue, that's the reason that the family's penniless at this point, or the trust is, and that you got to kill Jimmy to get the money, because Julian does have he has a noble mission in saving Metropolis from Lex Luthor. It's just him trying to get money to do so, is he's crossed that line.
Yeah.
And
there's some
Lex does all this.
Great action in this issue, because obviously, so Jimmy arrives with his army as scrub.
Yep.
But then he calls in reinforcements. He calls in everyone he knows. So we get Metamorpho show up, and we get
Jimmy
Metamorph Olsen.
Metamorph Olsen, there it is.
Yeah.
And
but then we get pretty much everyone else who's been in all the issues, and that's what all the caption boxes are like, telling us how all these people who have been in 11 random issues. This weird journey. We don't want to call it a crisis, but I mean, it's a bit of a crisis, and they use the crisis font.
Crisis font, yeah. And we see the Newsboy Legion and all of the different Jimmys that we saw in that one issue. the reign of the Olsens and
Yeah,
whatnot.
it's great. And there's kind of a page where we see, all the different multiverse versions of Jimmy. There's a Hawkman Jimmy, Guy Gardner Jimmy. It's
Yep.
all these things. It's great.
The Crisis of Infinite Olsens kind of vibe, right? But so this leads up in Faction and Lieber are aware of this, because then we get to how possibly can we tie up all of these threads into one last issue? And
Yeah, so you'll notice we only have 26 pages, including this one, to wrap up all of this nonsense.
Right. And we still don't know why there's two Jimmys, right? There's one that was reading in Metropolis while he was off planet, because we know that he was doing that.
Yep.
Unless they're going to play with the timeline even a little bit more.
Which I wouldn't put it past them at this point.
No. And we're gonna have to how the family's gonna deal with Julian putting a hit out on, because they even bring up, well, what about the genetically altered duplicate, right? And he's like, well, no, that's different. We're not reading that. Yeah. That was destroyed. We're fine. So Fraction is cleaning stuff up. So I am curious to see where this all leads to. Yeah. But yeah, it was really quick, because we get a lot of the pages of seeing all the aliens and all the characters that we've seen.
Yeah, there's a lot of
show back
action in this issue, more than any other. Right. But it's a blast to read.
Yep. And Lieber's art is still fantastic. And like you said, we saw all the different versions of Jimmy in that one page. We get the detectives and Superman. Lieber draws a great Superman. He's not in this a lot, but when he does show up, you notice
and that's the ending here, is Superman being like, I think it's time for me to step in here and give Jimmy a hand.
Yep, because he is Superman's pal, right? And I think this issue was called Everybody's Pal, Jimmy Olsen, which I thought was a nice touch.
Yeah, that was
because of what it means. But yeah, no, I'm just like Lois. This is really coming around. Can't believe we're almost done with both of them.
No, just one more issue.
Just one more issue apiece. So, what you rating this one, Connor?
It's a solid 8 for me.
Oh yeah, me too. I already 8. I don't like when we line up because our scales are so different.
I know.
And it leads more credence to yours when we line up.